Welcome to the Dragon's Library, your source for games, movies, shows, and more. Alright everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to be reviewing the sequel to A Natural History of Dragons called The Tropic of Serpents, a memoir by Lady Trent. The book itself is by Marie Brennan. I think it was like 2 weeks ago I reviewed Natural History of Dragons, and it's probably one of the most interesting books I've read in a while. Actually, it was a while ago. It wasn't 3 weeks ago. It was almost a month ago now. Wow. So A Natural History of Dragons is basically, it's a fantasy world with similar stand-ins for human nations. Like, you have your Arabic nation, you have your Victorian England nation, you have your Russian nation, that kind of thing. But it's very different from our world. There's different religions, traditions, that kind of stuff. And of course, there are dragons. And so this is the sort of like a collection of memoirs by this special Lady Trent, Isabella Trent. And she is, basically this is her story of how she became the world's foremost dragon naturalist or dragon biologist. And this is the second book in her story. The first book was basically, well, I did a full review on that. If you want to go check it out, you can. I'll include a link in the description. But as a short summary, just to get anybody who didn't listen to that caught up or didn't read the first book, she loved dragons since she was a kid. Due to the strict social requirements in her life, she was required to marry and, shouldn't be reading that kind of stuff. So she met her father, helping her manage to get married to someone with an extensive library who wouldn't mind her, interest in those things. And then she went on an expedition with him as a sort of, I know you like this stuff and, we can do this together. It'll be all safe and you're pretty good at drawing. You can help us out, sort of thing. And so they went on this expedition to this foreign country to study the dragons there with the help of a sponsor. It was supposed to be a safe trip, but things started going wrong. They get caught up in a conspiracy where they found out that somebody had found a way to preserve dragon bones instead of having them melt away. And these bones were stronger and lighter than iron. And and near the end of the book, they had kept the secret between themselves, dealt with the conspiracy, but they were left with this knowledge that would eventually be found out by others. Even if they destroyed the notes, somebody would figure it out because now there were enough people who knew it could be done. And they also knew that if this knowledge were discovered, there were plenty of nations willing to hunt dragons to near extinction in order to get a hold of this resource. The scientists even found ways of shaping and molding the bones to fit components, so they could literally replace this stuff with iron. This could be literally a biological replacement for iron. So that's where the second book starts out, with them having spent like a few years trying to research a way to synthesize the material instead of harvesting it from dragons. Basically, the idea is they know this knowledge will be discovered eventually, but if they can find a way to, show this information, duplicate it without having to kill dragons, then nations won't go to, won't start hunting dragons to extinction to get the bones. It's not going well. So let's get into the book. So the book starts out, it's a few years later. It's not going well. The synthesization, 3 years, it's 3 years later. The chemist they had hired to synthesize the bones is having a lot of trouble getting it, and then he has a break-in. Somebody stole it from them. As a result, that means the knowledge is about to break out, and they go on another expedition to try and find more knowledge in an attempt to head off this impending disaster, basically. Everything's going wrong, but we have to go on a new expedition to this country. They're going to study these two types of dragons. So these are swamp dragons and these plain dragons, which seem to have biological similarities, along with a group of people who seem to have a connection and a sort of symbiotic relationship with the dragons in their swamps. In the hopes of learning more about them and possibly finding a way to synthesize the bones. Meanwhile, the chemist, using the notes that weren't stolen, is going to try and get a head start on synthesizing the bone. I'll say up front, the story is really good. I love it even more than the first book. In fact, so far, this is my favorite book out of the entire series. Granted, this is the second one I've run, so, just being better than the first is already better than the best one in the series. But it's so interesting. They go to two different countries, so they have, I forget the name of it. It's basically like an Arabic sort of stand-in. And their social structure is pretty interesting. They have this, political intrigue for a bit, but that's not the best part. It's just okay. But then they go to the swamp. And see, the swamp is actually regularly known by the other countries as the Green Hell. And they meet these people called the Moolish. And they live, nature, related to nature, but it's not really like in nature. They have a lot of different advancements of their own. They don't really have as much of a, need for a permanent residence, if that makes sense. So the Moolish live in a place called, they live in this massive swamp. And the problem is you can't really build permanent structures there due to the nature of the environment. It just tends to eat up anything you build there. As a result, they live in a much more tribalish, but not really in a primitive way, more of a, you can't build permanent physical structures, so we create smaller communities, and they're kind of more fluid. If you want to leave, you just go leave and find another place. And their culture is very interesting, and they go into the ways why they're like that. I'm not entirely sure how realistic it is. I don't study the development of cultures as a whole thing. But most of it seems very well researched and very well thought through. Like, there's a reason for everything they do. And their culture is very, explained. Like, we have a lot of time to stay with them, find out why they're like this, talk with them. And they're really cool. Conceptually, too. And then we study the dragons, and, it's just, there's just one part in the book, though. See, they get wrapped in another problem. There's this foreign country that's trying to invade the Arabic one. What is it? They're, Skierland. That's the country they're a part of. So, Skierland is the country Isabella's from, and they have a pact with this Arabic nation. And they are supposed to defend them. And they defend them from the sea because the current invading nation, which they only come up a little bit, so I don't remember their name off the top of my head, is planning to take the fort that's, preventing them from sailing in and launching a naval operation, and then they'll just be able to land their troops on the shores and take over. They find out they've been sending scouts in after she does this whole ritual thing where she flying, has to get to a island that's really difficult to get to. It's right in front of a waterfall. And she ends up, constructing, this glider made of dragon bone they had preserved, and using it to glide to the island and then glide back down. Cause again, it's around the edge of a waterfall and right, near a mountainous area. So she basically could glide to it and then glide back down to the mainland. She gets trapped and caught by a scouting group. She manages to escape and warn them, and they have to stop them from launching the sneak attack. And there's this moment where she's like, now, I know my readers already know everything I learned on that expedition and all that, so I'll try and keep this stuff brief and short. And she goes through it, and he's like, all right, I know you're all like, yes, we already know this, so let's get back to the thing you're all here for. The invasion. And I'm like, no. I'm here for the dragon facts. Tell me more about the dragons. I don't care about the fictional invasion. I'm here to listen to facts about the dragon naturalist. And it's just one of these really interesting things the writer is really good at getting across, that these are the memoirs of this really famous historical figure who constantly references all these events that, everyone in her world is, sure to know off the top of their head. It'd be like if someone in our world, referenced 9/11, the general facts around it, but didn't tell you the whole story, because of course an American nowadays will know what 9/11 is. They'll know all of that. They don't need to reference that. It's it's a horrible tragedy or whatever, a major historical conflict, the Vietnam War. Oh yeah, it's like the Vietnam War or the Iraq War. It's like, oh wait, but I wasn't there for those. Can you tell me about those? Oh, you should already know those, son. We'll get to the more important parts, the, economic fallout from that or whatever. And it's like, no, wait, I don't know anything about that. That's why I'm reading this. And that's what a lot of the dragon information feels like. I know we're going to learn more about it. It's partially to probably help keep up the mystery of all the information we learned throughout the books. But she's really good at, saying, of course, in my world, you guys would definitely be more interested in these facts. But I'm like, but tell me more about this. Why do we have to keep waiting for this? It's not a flaw. I want to emphasize that. It's really not a flaw. It shows really good writing and an understanding of the world she's in. Honestly, the thing these series might be best at is Exposition. Exposition is really hard in stories. I've read a lot of stuff, and I've seen a lot of people do really, really horrible exposition. It's really hard to make it sound natural, like the thoughts of your protagonist, or even, especially in a conversation. When you're doing exposition where a character is actually explaining it, and they're not literally sitting down somewhere to explain it, and even when they are, it can come across as really out of character, especially when you start explaining the audience and by extension, the people they're talking to should be able to extrapolate on their own. It's like, and I stabbed him with a spear, which caused him to die. I'm sure you understand that. And then he also finally took his last breath. Like, that feels very unnatural. You can just say, I stabbed him and he fell over and leave it to the audience to fill it in. That's not even a good example. I apologize. But the point is, exposition is very difficult to do. You have to strike that balance between telling just enough to get your point across without telling too much that the dialogue doesn't feel right, and having it all make sense that the character would say or think these things in the context you're writing them. And I think Marie Brennan is really, really good at doing that. The exposition in these books never comes across as out of character or even like overdone. It all feels very natural and in context appropriate, if that makes sense. There are a few other things going on in the book. She's originally sent to the Green Hell she originally goes into the swamp, due to a deal she made with the Arabic nation's leader to get a hold of some dragon eggs, which she actually does end up fulfilling in a weird way. In the process, she tries to stop her country and that nation from building a dam that would hurt the Moorish way of life. She ends up using the knowledge of how to get the eggs in order to prevent the dam from being built after her own nation doesn't want to. And as a result of all the things she did to help all the parties involved, and the fact that she prevented the dam that would have given Skirland a lot of monetary value out of it, she ends up being labeled as a traitor to her nation. Now, not officially, nobody ever fully gets away with charging or something or getting through, but they do try to charge her with stuff, it just doesn't stick. And she said, yes, this would be the first time of many I'd be labeled as a traitor in my life. I'm like, wow, you led a really interesting life. You being labeled as a traitor more than once and not been, convicted of it. That's an impressive. She has such an interesting and controversial life. Like, wow, this one person got wrapped into so much. And there was this really sad part at the end where she talks about all the people she met, and then we were like, oh yeah, you met all those other people in the last book too, and she talks about, yeah, I only ever saw, maybe 2 of them again, only one of them more than once, and even then, we weren't really close. I meet all these interesting and wonderful people during my journeys, but that's kind of the curse. I'm constantly traveling, constantly moving forward, and I meet so many of them, and we change each other's lives, and we just never see each other again, because we're moving forward and moving onward and studying. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of sad. And it's just, she's such a well-developed, interesting character. She wants to do well, but she puts kind of her, obsession with dragons a little bit first. But she always tries to find a way to link that obsession back to helping others or to making other lives better. And she doesn't let herself throw away everything nowadays just to do it. Like, at first, she was willing to just throw away everything if it meant getting closer to dragons, but she seems to have, tapered off as the book's gone through. She's maturing, growing, I don't know, more, I don't really know how to describe it. She's just growing more mature, more understanding of her place in the world, what she wants to do with it. And I love it. I love her character. I love her character arc as the whole series has gone on. Her learning to become one of the pure amongst the Moolish. That's the name for the dragon tenders and those who are allowed to know the secrets about dragons. She ends up being initiating their practices and learning how they help. Because that's one of the cool things. The Moolish, actually, the swamp dragons they work with, they end up raising and caring for the queens and setting up the mating rights. They're almost like zookeepers or and they help, maintain their health, and they give them males to mate with, and they take the eggs and they seed them throughout the swamp. And the eggs actually hatch into this larval form of these small little serpentine figures. Serpentine figures compete for food, and only those who survive mature into actual dragons, which is why there aren't as many of them as there are eggs. And there are all these interesting little facts you learn about, their behavior and their diet and how they mature. And it's like, oh my, it's all really interesting. And it's a very well thought out world that obviously required a lot of research and understanding of things like biology and history and cultures to create. And it's always a treat to experience such a well put together world. So yeah. I think that about covers it. I would definitely recommend this series. I'm still going through it, so maybe it dinks at the end, but I highly doubt it. Anything this well put together is definitely going to be good all the way through. I can just tell. So yeah, highly recommend the Tropic of Serpents. Read A Natural History of Dragons. Read The Tropic of Serpents. Read anything else you can get by this author, because she obviously knows what the heck she's doing. And yeah. Alright, so next week I'll be going to see that Tom and Jerry movie that just got released a while back. It's still in theaters and things are clearing up, so I'll head over and see that. So that'll be Tuesday. And on Thursday, I'm going to read a book that's a personal favorite of mine. It's Heartstrikers, Book 1, Nice Dragons Finish Last by Rachel Aaron. And she's a great writer. I think the spin-off series might be slightly better, but I really just have a personal affection for the first 5 books. So I'm redoing the first book of those, and I'll see you then. I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode, and thank you for listening to the Dragon's Library. Please subscribe to this podcast to be notified of new episodes. The Dragon's Library releases new episodes Tuesday and Friday each week, and you can follow us on Twitter at dragon_library2. If you want to suggest an episode topic, my email is in the description below. And as always, thank you so much for all your support.